Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Perpetuality. Rarely do I talk about watches that I have made a conscious decision to buy. The reason for this is that my watch collection is always changing. Watches are being shifted out frequently. I feel like I would be updating you guys in every video. And the whole point isn't what I own, more about what I'd like to experience. Once in a while, I come across a watch that leads me to slow down, as it checks off all the right boxes, and I start to fear letting it go will result in me missing it greatly. This is the Longines Zulu-Time, and it encapsulates everything I just described. It is the best watch I've bought in 2022, and here are some reasons why. First reason, the watch truly caught me off guard. Longines didn't have to make this watch, but I'm glad they did. It stands out to me as a bandwagon attempt to get a GMT watch out in this year, as nearly every manufacturer had rushed to do the same thing. But this effort from Longines was not a rushed one. The result is a watch that genuinely left me reconsidering other brands like Tudor and the Black Bay Pro, that of which I did a video comparing the two, and in my opinion, the Longines was the better quality watch and was more appealing, but it wasn't without its faults. One of which is the size being the biggest bone of contention. It is not a small watch at 42mm. Now my reasons for picking the Longines has to do with the finishing. It was as good as watches 2 to 3 times its value. Now this video won't be a full-on review of the Longines Zulu-Time. I've already compared it to the Tudor Black Bay Pro. And if you're interested in that comparison or the review of both of these watches, it is on my YouTube channel for your viewing. In the video, I commented that the Longines was the better looking watch and that it was my choice over the Tudor Black Bay Pro. Now, between the two watches I compared, a lot of the comments in the video were pointing out that they wish the Longines was a smaller watch and that maybe the best watch between both of these would be an amalgamation or combination of the two. Can you imagine if Longines was made in a smaller size and it had perhaps the movement of the Tudor? I think you'd have a real winner on your hands. A big striking difference between the two is the fact that the Longines has an identity of its own. It is an original design that is not based upon any one watch. The Tudor Black Bay Pro, it can be connected to the Explorer 2, and by that design language, it is less original than the Longines. By this manner of speaking, I find that the rotating bezel on the Longines Zulu-Time is more appealing to me. The third reason as to why this watch is such a phenomenal purchase for me in 2022 has to do with the quality of the dial. I had owned an Omega Seamaster 300 meters in the past, and there was dial debris. At 1.1 magnification inside the laser cut waves, there was visible specks of dust and debris. Now, no manufacturer is impervious to quality control. The Longines Zulu-Time dial is so incredibly sharp and clean that my example had no visible faults. The text was clear, and the cleanliness of the hands remind me of Grand Seiko's attention to detail that is within the high polished elements. That is the highest praise I can give to a dial. I love that the numerals for the hours are individually applied and stand tall on the dial. If I could shrink myself down and walk on the dial, I'm sure that the hour indices would appear like monolithic monuments. Fourth reason as to why the Longines is special to me is that it got me to challenge my convictions for having a smaller watch. It is a 42mm wide watch with a lug-to-lug length closer to 51 to 52mm. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sugarcoat that this is a small watch, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes larger watches that have intention to be large, as in they're more legible or they're just plain attractive by being a little bit larger, they definitely should not be discounted and ignored. In fact, this 42mm wide Longines got me to open my door to bigger watches, and I'm glad it did. And part of the reason why I'm so glad is that I felt like I was restricting myself, limiting myself to smaller watches within the 37 to 40mm range, and that really limited my choices. Oftentimes when I review watches, I try to separate the bracelet and the case and talk about their merits on their own, but I do feel like the Longines Zulu-Time is one very cohesive watch. I felt like the bracelet and the case were thought out carefully. What do I mean by that? The fact that the brushwork and the chamfered cutout in the case match the cutout sections of the bracelet in the middle parts of the bracelet make me feel like there was attention to detail. There was intention for that to be an element, a design element for this bracelet. There are multiple points of adjustment, so they thought about comfort as well. And I got this bracelet adjusted on my wrist in about 10 minutes. And that leads me to my next point, which is my favorite part, that magic release button in the end link that allows you to free the bracelet from the case. In just one quick move by depressing the button, you're able to release the spring bars that attach the end link to the case. This is such a magical, convenient function that got me to truly enjoy switching out the bracelet for straps. I really wish that more watch brands would take a lesson from this and integrate it in their watches. My final reason as to why this was my favorite watch purchase of 2022 is the fact that it opened up a world of possibilities for combinations and switching out straps to get a desired look, to me really figuring out what are the limits of creativity that I have as a collector for making this watch more refreshing to wear, as I would get bored of different combinations or getting bored of it on the bracelet. I then would open up my world to possibilities of a canvas strap, like this particular Mon strap, vintage canvas strap that is actually rubber lined on the back, and it has this green hue that just picks up that green bezel, and it plays quite nicely with the gold details. And there were some days where I wanted to dress up the Longines Zulu-Time to wear to a dinner party, and thus a leather strap would be the perfect fit. This is a vintage distressed leather strap from Mon Straps, and I do really love this combination. The gold warm tones of the distressed leather with its different marbling really helps pick up the colors on the dial and the bezel. It's a contrast to the green, but yet it complements the gold parts of the dial, and it happens to be a combination that I default to quite frequently when I think of this watch. There are some times I will be spending quality time just walking along the docks, and it might be a more rainy type of day, and that's when I would bring out this nylon rubber backed strap that I actually got from AliExpress. I think it's a handsome combination. The green plays with the green bezel. It's a perfect match to one another. It's light enough that it doesn't make it boring in terms of offering a contrast to the green bezel, and it is rubber lined, which means you have no problems getting this wet and using the watch for its intended purpose, which may be very well travel. Now, to bring this video to a close, if you're looking for a watch that is a high quality dual time zone telling, well, multiple time zone telling watch, you should look no further than the Longines Zulu-Time. It is something to be said, caught me by surprise for 2022, and that is why it is this year's best purchase for me.